to join.
So who do you expect? What kind of person do you expect on this webinar? Is it
Uh,
students? Is it people who already have startups?
yes, people who already have startups, people who are planning to like start a startup. So
Okay.
yeah. So let's wait for everyone to join.
So you have 19, 20, 21.
Krishna Priya, should I share the slide or?
Yeah, you can start sharing. Right. I think we can start. So, hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Krishna Priya. I'm a program manager at Numa Bangalore. Numa is a global acceleration and innovation company. We work with multiple large corporates as well as startups. So today our panel discussion is on preparing for post-COVID-19 business scenario, what startups can expect. So our moderator for the discussion is Suhas Dikshit. He's the CEO and founder for Agile Process Chemicals, which is also known as AP Chemi. So over to you, Suhas.
Um, uh, thank you, Krishna Priya. So, general guidelines for attending this discussion to start with is that whoever is whoever is not speaking, keep your microphones on mute during the discussion. That's the first guideline. Second is that if you want to ask any questions, please use raise hand feature in the Zoom conference facility, um, or you can post the question in the Zoom chat box and the question reaches us. And we have received a lot of questions, and we can also pick up some more live questions towards the end of this panel discussion. If you want to share the live YouTube stream link with somebody, you can use this live YouTube stream link. Uh, with that, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the panel discussion specifically on preparing for the post-COVID-19 business scenario and what startups can expect, how can we adapt to this situation. And to guide on this, we have three speakers. Let me take the privilege of introducing the speakers. So the first speaker is Ravi Kiran Annaswamy. He is the CEO and MD of Numosity Technologies. Ravi Kiran Annaswamy is founder and CEO of Numosity Technologies. He is incubating various innovative products, including analytics, deep learning. His current business focuses on bringing electric mobility to Indian market and has launched various technology products in this space. He is a sought out leader and speaker at various prestigious international businesses and conferences. So, thank you, Ravi, to be with us. And
Thank you, Suhas. Looking forward.
thank you, Ravi. And once we finish introducing the speakers, then we'll start with the questions and all. So Ravi, this is the brief introduction that I gave about you. Would you like to say a few words about what you're working on in the current situation, and then we'll move on to the next speaker?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. So,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, we work in the electric mobility space in India and globally. We are more the technology providers. We are not the actual service provider. So we build a lot of technologies for electric vehicle charging, electric vehicle batteries, and the vehicles themselves. So we work very closely with a lot of ecosystem players in India. And mobility itself will change post-COVID. I think one of the topics we will discuss as we go along. So interesting times for us.
Interesting. Thank you for giving the heads up on that.
Sure.
The second speaker that we have is Dr. Dhruv Nath. Dr. Dhruv Nath is Director, Lead Angel Networks, and he's a professor at Management Development Institute at Gurgaon. Earlier, he was also a chairman of for Incubation and Entrepreneurship at MDI. He is also an angel investor and a director with Lead Angel Networks. In the process, Dr. Nath has mentored over 25 digital startups. Dr. Nath has written 3 books on startups and customer relationship management, and is currently writing a book as well as a series of articles for startups and investors. He has BTech in electrical engineering and PhD in computer science, both from IIT Delhi. So that's a brief introduction of you, Dr. Dhruv Nath. If you can give a brief on yourself, as well as what are your activities that you are engaging in to help startups mitigate in the current situation, please.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks, Suhas. First of all, you must realize that asking a professor to be brief is a little difficult because professors like to talk. So you have to shut me up at some stage. Most of my time today goes into either angel investing or mentoring young startups, and sometimes not so young startups. And in fact, the fundamental question which everybody asks, which is what I thought I'd share today, is given this current crisis, what the hell do we do? How do we survive? How do we crack the opportunity, if any, and therefore how do we grow? Yeah, so those are the kinds of issues that I thought I'd talk about today.
Okay, wonderful. That was pretty brief. So
okay, so I'll carry on. I can carry on.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dhruv. So that takes us to the third speaker that we have is Palak Bhatia. She's Senior Manager, Startup India and Invest India. Startup India is a flagship initiative of Government of India aimed at providing end-to-end facilitation, mentoring, advisory to startups in India. Startup India Hub is a common point of contact for startups, entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, academia across India and abroad, India as well as abroad, to connect and foster holistic growth of startup ecosystem in India. So that's a brief on you, Palak, and Invest India as a Government of India initiative. Would you please brief us on what Government of India initiative Startup India is doing to help startups and entrepreneurs mitigate the current situation that we are going through? Yes, Palak.
Thank you, Suhas. Our initiative is about 4 years old now, and our focus has always been to create macro impact projects with the government in order to create programs, policies, initiatives that can enable the startup ecosystem as a whole. This is a difficult time for all startups in the country, and it is a difficult time for the government to figure out what exactly it needs to be done. I am happy to hear questions from anyone as to what could be the measures that you are looking from the government side. There have been multiple stakeholder consultations along those lines. Happy to talk more about that. I worked at a startup before for almost 2 years. So I understand exactly what's going through a lot of these startups' minds. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Palak. And definitely we look forward to a lot of questions on how Government of India can help startups as well. So that's your specialty. Those kind of questions will come to you. And moving on, very quickly introducing myself, I'm Suhas Dikshit. I'm the founder and CEO of AP Chemi, Agile Process Chemicals. We have offices in India as well as UK. Now this introduction has gone wrong, so I'll just remove this introduction and I'll introduce myself. Yeah. So AP Chemi is a company that converts waste plastic into fuel. We convert plastic into fuel and chemicals using a process called pyrolysis. So pyrolysis is a process wherein you can take plastic subject to high temperatures. Plastic is manufactured from crude oil, so we convert plastic back into crude oil. Basically, all the chemicals that you can manufacture from crude oil can be manufactured from plastic waste. So all that plastic that goes to landfill sites and cannot be recycled through extrusion or mechanical recycling requires chemical recycling, and that's the process that we lead at. We have around 15 plants operational in India, one in Kenya, one in Europe, and we are working on very interesting projects like a 40-ton per day project for city of London to convert plastic into fuel. However, I think I will play more of a role of a moderator because my business line has something else to do compared to the today's topic of discussion, which is specifically for preparing for the post-COVID-19 business scenario and what startups can expect. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I think I'll ask first question to Palak. She mentioned, Palak, you mentioned that. Let me just stop sharing. Yeah, okay. So Palak, you mentioned that Startup India is working on micro impact projects. So this is something that is very interesting, sounds interesting. So what kind of micro impact projects can come up, and how can it help startups to kind of mitigate the business downturn that has started because of coronavirus situation? So how can startup benefit from these kind of micro impact projects, and how do you see this going ahead? Briefly before we go on to the next question. Yeah.
So Suhas, let me clarify. I actually said macro impact. So let me still sort of explain what exactly is it that we do. Our role from the beginning, 4 years, has been that we act like the facilitator for the entire ecosystem. In the last 2 months of this crisis, our role has been trying to mobilize a lot of stakeholders into creating the right kind of policies, creating the right regulatory reforms from the part of the government, speaking to, say, a lot of corporates, a lot of state governments in order to mobilize a lot of funds. Right before this, I had a call with, say, Northeast region government in order to understand how we could infuse some capital into the region. We are working with incubators. How can we help them into going virtual? We are helping a lot of these stakeholders sort of build things that can enable this. We're doing webinars, we're creating a lot of resources. This is something that has come as a demand from the startup side to us, which is why we've been doing it. Happy to hear suggestions from any startups as to what exactly do they need from our side so that we can make this more focused.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Palak. Palak, the next question goes to Dr. Dhruv Nath. To start on a positive note, Dr. Dhruv Nath, how do you think startups should find opportunity in the adversity? How do they find opportunity in so many things that are changing right now, so much of unpredictability that has happened? To start it off on positive note, how do you think startups should start focusing on the opportunity that the change in time has brought? I think you will have to unmute yourself, Dhruv.
Yeah, so I have approximately 1 hour. Okay. Uh, so, if you look at today's environment, essentially what has happened is everybody is in the dumps. Businesses have stopped. People who are delivering products, they've stopped delivering. People who had employees are not able to come to office. They're not able to work. In some cases, they're working from home, but there's no working from home because there's no customer to buy, right? So business is really stalled. I think the most important thing here, before we talk about opportunity, is businesses today need to figure out how to survive, right? Now, you would probably have heard a lot of webinars in these days about how to survive, cut cost, move from fixed cost into variable cost, hang on to your people, maybe reduce their salary a bit, leave out co-working spaces, knock out rentals, etc., etc. So those are commonplace. What I thought I'd do, because these are very common and you can get them possibly in any webinar, what I thought I'd do is to share with you some examples of companies that I have seen and policies that they have adopted in order to survive and therefore to be prepared to face the world once the crisis is over. So I'll share one example. Um, there is a company which we have been involved in and we may invest in. It's called Iril Farms. Essentially, what these guys do is they are into natural farming, right? So what they have is they have identified a lot of farmers in the state of Himachal Pradesh, close to Shimla, and those guys do not use either pesticides or fertilizers, and therefore the produce that they have, the vegetables, the fruit they have, is all we call it natural, right? And hopefully, it is healthier, it is chemical free, and therefore it is more nutritious. So these guys were in this business, and they would bring it to Delhi and therefore supply it to retail outlets, and they were also getting into supply to homes. Now, once the lockdown happened, their entire supply chain from Himachal to Delhi stopped, right? Now, there are two things they could have done. In fact, many founders, what they do is they sit on their backsides and, they sit at home and say, boss, mar gaya, I don't know what the hell to do. I'll just wait it out. I'll just wait for the lockdown to end. What these guys did was they said, no, we will fight. So they said, today there is a fundamental problem in people in Delhi getting vegetables from anywhere because supply chains all over the place have gone, right? Even non-natural stuff, the normal conventional fertilizer based vegetables, people find it difficult to get. So what they did was they went to local farmers in the Gurgaon Delhi area. They started picking up stuff from there and they started delivering it at retail outlets. And in fact, they have also tied up with Swiggy. So Swiggy is delivering some of their products direct to home. So now just look at what they've done. They have, in this period, they are not able to get natural products, but they said we have to survive, we have to get some revenues, we have to cover our cost, and therefore we are doing conventional vegetable selling, and therefore the revenue that they got during this period, the monthly revenue, was actually higher than the amount they used to get before the lockdown, right? Which means once the lockdown is over, and I believe the supply is now from Himachal, it's beginning to start again, they are in very good shape to continue because their competitors typically would have died. They wouldn't have known, what to do. These guys have enough cash with them and therefore they're able to move ahead. So you have to look at innovative ways to stay alive. And this is just one example. There are many others which one can share.
Innovative ways to stay alive. That's the takeaway.
Absolutely. Don't just sit and wait for the lockdown to end. You don't know when it'll end. I mean, you can't talk to the virus and ask it. The virus wouldn't reply. So you have to do something to stay afloat.
Virus is talking through the actions rather than words. So,
or you talk to Trump. Trump thinks he knows what the virus is doing.
Yeah. So, so thanks for that, Dhruv. Now, this question is to you, Ravi Kiran. Understanding your specialization that is in analytics and deep learning. The question to you really is, how has the COVID affected the application of analytics and deep learning in mobility business as well as businesses in general? I mean, all the businesses have now tendency to use these technology solutions that are available, whether it is analytics or deep learning. And mobility is one of the most common business. I mean, it touches everybody's lives, whether it is Ola, Uber, or transport, any kind of mobility. So how has COVID affected the application of analytics and deep learning in the businesses of mobility as well as businesses in general? Any thoughts on that, Ravikiran?
Thanks, Suhas. Uh, Probably I look at it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe most people are jumping the gun to come to a conclusion on what will happen or what has happened. It's only a few weeks. I think we should not panic at this moment. Nothing has happened. I mean, nothing has really happened. Of course, from a mobility pattern, a lot of things have stopped. I think this is a lockdown period. Now, would you stop your whole business because of something like that happened? Probably not. I think we should not panic to that extent. Whatever was happening will happen, is happening. So, I mean, as we talk, a lot of companies are working. We also continue to work. Nothing is changed for us in terms of what we do. Of course, are our customers doing a lot of business on the ground? Probably not. Most of the mobility players are off. But at the same time, remember the opportunity for delivery players. They are also mobility players, logistics players. They are delivering a lot more goods. Everything probably will become online ordering as we go along. So there are different players coming up. So the needs might change. The contour of how we do things might change, but the technology we still need. And I think people who build these, people who work on these, including the mobility companies, will continue to do so. But we should just be ready to see what pivots will happen, what changes will happen in the market, and be ready to adapt to that. I mean, we don't have to be fixed saying, today I'm doing only this work and I'll continue to do only that. That may not happen. I mean, like Dhruv also explained, I mean, you should be open enough to say, if things change, you're open to change. And then you also need to adapt to that change. But my approach is, I don't think there is anything to panic right now or anything to really think something has gone wrong. Just stay with your business, do what you're doing, but be ready to change. I'm quite sure there will be changes. Be ready to change and adapt to that change. And that's what I wanted to say.
That's very interesting insight, Ravikiran. Thank you for that. Now, this question is from the participants. One of the questions that has been asked by the participant, and this has been asked with reference to the government policy and all. So maybe Palak, you might be at a better position to address this question, but it goes to all speakers as such. So the question is, any idea on how India's FDI policy change may impact Chinese investments post-COVID-19 situation? I'll repeat, any idea on how India's FDI policy may change, policy change may impact Chinese investments post-COVID-19 situation?
So Suhas, the announcement has been made around the investments coming via a government route versus the automatic route that was present earlier. This has been made only for the neighboring countries, which means that any investments coming from neighboring countries, including China, it is not just about China, including China, will have to go through certain scrutiny from the government side. There is no particular discrimination that is being made against China. This is a strategic move for the government to have a little more understanding of what is coming on the ground, what kind of investments are coming in, what is more impactful and what is not, what needs to be focused upon. But that is probably it. Does it impact startups in any major way? Yes, a lot of startups do get investments from Chinese investment companies. Yes, that is correct. But it is only a matter of a bit of scrutiny, and that is all. There is not much impact going.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you for that clarification. Now, another question.
Can I just add to that, Suhas?
Sure, Dhruv, please.
So, what we have seen, and I'm giving you the investment point of view now. Essentially, what the government wanted to do, what has happened is the stock market has collapsed, right? And valuations of most companies are 40%, 50%, even top-notch companies, well below their usual levels. And the Chinese have gone around, Chinese companies have gone around, Chinese government funds have gone around buying into these companies, right? And in fact, the latest, which actually caused this policy to be created, was the Chinese buying, I think, 1% in HDFC Limited, right? So what is happening essentially is the government, like Palak rightly said, wants to keep the Chinese, or for that matter, any other neighboring country, out of sensitive areas, right? So if you're into defense, if you're into, let's say, electronics manufacturing, which is leading to telecom or whatever, those are things we would like to keep out. But if the Chinese want to invest in, let's say, manufacture of babies' nappies, I mean, why would the government object? Surely they would approve it. What I've also seen is that uh, today, the Chinese economy has opened up far more than many of the other economies in the world, because the virus is on its way out in China, right? In fact, if you look at the funds which are investing today, the VCs, it is the Chinese guys who are fairly active. The Chinese, the Korean, and the Japanese. The Western guys are not active right now, right? So, in fact, chances are you will get a lot of Chinese funds, but yes, you will need government approval, and you probably wouldn't get them for sensitive sectors. But non-sensitive sectors, it doesn't matter. I mean, dollar is a dollar ultimately.
So when you say sensitive sectors, it's something like making weapons or something. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, could be defense, or could be, data which goes into China, which is sensitive data. Even let's say the telecom network, they would not want the Chinese to, invest in that. So things of that kind.
But then essential services, is that opportunity is open.
Yes, I mean, if the Chinese want to invest in noodle manufacturing,
Yeah, that should
and
not
they,
be.
in fact, they have far more expertise in noodle manufacturing than Indians do anyway. I mean, they've been
Very.
eating noodles for millions of years.
So
As long as they don't put in bats.
thank you, Dhruv. So this is one more question from the participants, and this question goes to both Numa City as well as EP Chemi. We work in sustainability area. So as businesses, what is your reaction to this pandemic? I'll very quickly summarize my reaction. What is our reaction as a company to this pandemic, and then I'll leave it to Ravi. So as a company, we were probably the one of the first companies to start working from home. I would say from Navi Mumbai, or the whole Mumbai. I think from the third or fourth of the month we started working from home, and lockdown was announced, I think, around 16, 17. I don't remember exactly. uh, Now the problem that we have is that we have design engineering department of 10 people, and we are overloaded with work because the assignments to clean plastic waste are not going down. So engineering can work. And then these 10 people are working probably overtime to earn salaries of 45 employees. We are trying to figure out what can we do to bring salaries for workshop employees or people who are operating our customers plant and all. So we are not very clear on what we are doing, but then we are working from home, whoever can work from home. But definitely our revenue streams have gone down. We cannot sell plant and machinery. We can only sell engineering consultancy and try to figure out cash flow around that. So with that, Ravi Kiran, what's the reaction of your company to this pandemic?
Yeah, so we took an approach to see what's happening around us. From a day-to-day work, nothing much changed. We have our customers, we have deliveries to make. So we just kept our guns going, and we haven't changed anything in that way. So we are as busy as what we were trying to do, exactly what we were doing. But what is very clear to us is our customers have difficulties. So we have reached out to each one of them, try to find out how else can we add value to them, have a lot of conversations with them. There may not be a revenue coming in immediately because of any of these activities, but it's a relationship building. We have really worked closely trying to find out what else can we do for them. Business or no business, we're just helping our customers. I think that's the approach we have kept, and that sort of keeps us busy and also gives us more grounded to reality because we know what our customers are going through. Because we are a B2B company, so once we get to know what our customers are going through, we have a fair sense of what to expect post COVID. So I think that's how we have kept ourselves busy. Nothing much has changed for us. We are business as usual as of now.
So the next question goes really to both Dhruv as well as Ravi as well as Palak. Uh, I mean, a lot of things have changed right now because of COVID situation. At the same time, for startups to grow, for them to expand their business, they need to raise funds. And in case you have to still continue raising funds to grow your business or sustain your business, what are the key things that probably sorry about that, I'll look into that. So what are the key things that probably investors would look into as far as looking at the startups that are trying to pitch and raise funds? What are the key things that investors would look into for into this? Yeah.
Should I take that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you
you can.
should start.
You can
When to start? I'll take it after you.
Um,
Or should I start?
yeah,
Okay.
Dhruv, you can
Yeah.
start. Yeah, please.
Okay. So, so first of all, under normal circumstances, investors look for several things in a startup, right? So they will look at, are you solving a real problem? Are people going to be willing to pay for it? Is the business scalable? Is there too much competition? Is it a crowded space, etc., etc., etc.? So there are standard things which they look for in any case. But what has happened is in this time, so I'll give you a couple of examples and I'll try and extract from that what our learning has been. Uh, what we have realized is both at the level of angel investing, which is early stage, which is typically going up to about between 1 and 3 crores, or at the VC level, which is typically $500,000, so 3.5 crores plus, right? At both stages, money is available, right? It's available. Okay. VCs, obviously, the money is available simply because, VCs create funds and those funds take in money from investors and now they have to invest it because it's a close-ended fund, which means at the end of 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, they have to give return. So they can't keep that money hanging around in, fixed deposits or liquid funds. They have to invest it. There is no choice. So the money is available. Similarly, angels, the money is available. And I'll give you one simple example. We have a company that we are investing in. It's an interesting company called Oki Poki, right? It's basically trying to teach children between the ages of 2 and 6 who do not have an English background, who have no English spoken at home, vernacular background, to learn English, right? So it's basically aimed at them and it's entirely app based. Now, these people, we were discussing the business, the deal with them over several months, and they were doing a certain level of business. What we realized was that during the lockdown, post the lockdown, since kids are at home and kids have nothing to do, suddenly their downloads of these apps suddenly went up 50%, right? Now, what does the investor see? The investor sees in the COVID environment and definitely in the post-COVID environment, because there will be a lot more of work from home and doing everything from home. He sees that this business is such that the COVID environment will actually benefit the business, right? Now, that is the first thing the investor looks at. Will this business be benefited because of post-COVID? That is number one. And that's an example. So the amount of money they were able to raise actually was significantly higher than the initial amount we had planned, right? So that's one thing. The second thing they look at, and I go back to my Iril Farms example, is does the entrepreneur, does the founder have the ability to fight it out, to innovate, to fight it out, and to survive? And the Ariel Farms example is a very good example because, this is a guy who survived this stage. So tomorrow, if there is another crisis, the guy will be able to survive. He's willing to innovate. He will not just sit back and say, I'm dead, right? So what the investor is looking for is the ability of the founder to A, innovate, and B, survive in this environment. Because, at early stages, people invest less in the business and more in the founder. And anybody who's been through the COVID crisis and survived and thrived is a great guy to invest in. So funds are available, not a problem. Yes, there are many companies which are in the dumps, which are dead because of the COVID crisis. So for example, travel, tourism, hotels, nobody will look at them right now. Similarly, there are some companies which will survive, which will thrive possibly after the COVID crisis. But for the moment, they are dead. Those investors will look at later. But today, they're looking at those guys who've actually taken, who've held on to this opportunity and taken advantage of it.
Very interesting, Dhruv. Thank you for that insight. Basically, you have an idea that makes sense in the current situation. The funds are available, and as well as they would fund somebody who is a fighter. So if you have a fighter hiding somewhere inside you,
Absolutely.
you are saying that it's a really good time to bring out that
Absolutely.
fighter right now. Yeah.
So, in fact, I would say we at Lead Angel, because we do angel investing at multiple levels, both the angel level and subsequently at the VC level, we are on the lookout for such companies, and we have the money. So, if
Okay.
there are companies like this, please put them in touch with us.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Dhruv. Ravi, Palak, who would like to go? I mean, yeah.
Maybe some perspectives from my side. I'm not an investor. I'm more of an entrepreneur. I see mixed response in the startup community as an entrepreneur. I think, like Dhruv said, there are certain areas and segments where during the COVID, during the current time and also post, maybe in education, wellness, there are quite some areas where there is going to be a lot of growth possibilities, a lot of other new innovations to come up. I think those areas definitely will get funds going forward. But probably if you don't have something which can survive this sort of a scenario and also not much opportunities going forward, it's going to be difficult. And maybe not all VCs will now pour out ideas on anything which is really new or novel. They probably will check also on its sustainability on a longer run. I think that check, along with the entrepreneurs' really abilities. So it's not going to be very easy. I don't want to say that it's very easy to raise funds now. You have to be really careful on whether you want to raise or not raise. And if you are raising, you need to have your product idea, depends on what stage you are in the right way, and that you should be able to show that it can survive for a longer time. I think that becomes a very key criteria now.
Okay, very, very interesting, Ravi. Palak, any idea what would be investors or funders looking for? Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, Startup India had this webinar this morning, and we just repeat one message that they were sort of propagating at this webinar. They said that VCs have raised their funds from LPs as well and have promised a certain return to them. It's not like they have an option to sit on this money. So they have to invest. They can't really help it. Yes, the scrutiny would be slightly higher. They would be looking at, as Ravi Karan mentioned, more sustainability of the business rather than going for anything novel that their eye falls upon. But the money is going to be spent, and entrepreneurs should absolutely not think that this is not the right time to raise funds. It is necessary for their survival, and they should go for it.
Wonderful, wonderful insight, Palak. Your message is very clear that the funds are available. The VCs are committed to spend the funds that need to be spent, and entrepreneurs should just go ahead and start talking to people like yourself or Dhruv and Numa as well to figure out how to find connections and start pitching. Don't stop. That has, I think, come out really well, and it has cleared few ideas in my head as well. So
Here are the funds.
Wonderful. I keep them here. So this next question is from a participant. His name is Umesh Patil. So what Umesh is asking is how technology adoption can help boost the new startup after pandemic has begun. So how new technology adoption can help the new startups to grow in this pandemic? That's the kind of question. And technology adoption, if Ravi, if you want to go ahead with your prior experience of analytics and deep learning.
Yeah, I sort of didn't get the full context of the question, but nevertheless, what I look at it is, see, technology or no technology is not the most important part. If you are a startup, if you're running a business, You need to be solving a problem and you need to have a customer to whom you're solving it. So technology is important, technology is required, innovations are required, but it need not be only technology innovations. It could be across anything and everything what you do. So I would say it is important, but at the same time, don't be stuck with it. Go out and solve. A lot of new problems will open up post COVID, and those are something which we have not seen. So I think we need to be looking out for those problems and solve them. I don't know, because if you ask me, maybe I'm seeing few problems, but each one of us will see different opportunities, different problems to solve. I think that's what our focus should be. Technology is secondary. If you find that, you will find the right technology to solve it. So let's not look at the other way around. Let's not look at technology to solve a problem, but let's find the problem and then technology will come in.
That's very interesting insight, because lot of startups are kind of stuck because they think that they cannot grow business unless they have a technology and patents and something. What your insight is that technology may be developed down the line, but just start solving some important problem and then you will figure it out. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any take on this, Dhruv?
Yes. In fact, I will go a step further. Yes, the first thing the investor looks for, not only, see, the investor ultimately has the same viewpoint as the founder. He wants to invest in a company which will grow, which will do well, which will scale up. And the founder also wants exactly the same thing. So they have the same viewpoint. The only place where they will probably disagree is the valuation at which he invests, right? So we have seen a lot of companies where people come up with, and typically this happens with people from engineering colleges, IIT, even IITs, right? Where they are very tech savvy. They come up with a solution and then they say, look, now let's look for a problem for this, right? That's a wrong way. I agree with Ravi. You got to figure out a problem that the world is facing, the customer is facing, and are you willing to solve it, right? That's number one. Number two, I'll give you a very interesting situation where one of my students had come to me and he had created a startup and I was mentoring him. He said, look, sir, I want to raise funds and I want to introduce blockchain in this solution of mine. So I said, why? It doesn't seem to fit in. He says, sir, then I'll get a higher valuation from the investor. So that's absolutely silly. You will need whatever you need, whether it is technology, whether it is logistics, you need whatever you need. Accepted, see, you must remember, the more technology you use versus the more manpower you use, in the long run, you are far more scalable and your costs are going to be a lot lower. Absolutely. And technology typically will create an entry barrier, right? However, don't bring in technology purely for the sake of bringing in technology. You have to solve a problem. Whatever is required to solve that problem, solve it. In fact, investors, you must remember, they are smart guys. They will go through, unlike me. I mean, I'm a rare investor who's not smart, but investors are smart guys. They'll see your gimmick, see through your gimmick.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for that. So same question goes to Palak as well, probably. Any take on this? Like, how important is technology for when funders or investors want to invest in a startup? Do they want to invest in the startup that has some kind of which is focused on the technology only, or which is focused on being more flexible and adaptable? What's your take on this general subject? Palak, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I think I missed that. My internet has been acting up a little bit. Could you repeat the question? I'm very sorry.
So very briefly, as a perspective as a perspective from Startup India, Government of India, and entrepreneur enterprise, can you just, for sake of clarification, can you clarify that startups need not be only technology oriented? They can be startups to solve real problems, and funders and investors are not looking only into technology companies, but they are looking for real entrepreneurs who can solve problem. What's your take on a thought process like this? Yeah.
So absolutely, as both of the other panelists have mentioned, investors are currently looking at people who can solve problems, who have the ability to sail through this crisis and actually enable a business that can function within this crisis period as well, can sustain, has a good business model. Technology is only something that can enable a problem that you're already solving. It cannot be the only USP that a startup has. It is often said that the success of a startup is not just in the idea. The same idea could have been had by multiple people, but it is actually how you execute it, how strategically you go about it, what kind of customers do you target. All of these collectively actually bring about the success of a startup. And any investor pitch questions that you have ever seen will obviously reflect all of this. They will ask you questions related to how well you have planned, what kind of team do you have, how good of an experts are you in the kind of problem that you're trying to solve, have you checked out the market scenario. These are things that they are more focused upon rather than just technology. In fact, the other way around, MSMEs are now being told to adopt technology because that is something that can be very beneficial for their operations and the whole industry 4.0 revolution. But startups currently need to be only focused upon whether they are doing what they need to be doing well.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I have seen a lot of startups where people come in with a very strong tech background. They have zero business sense. That's absolutely perfect recipe for failure. You can come with a technology background. Yes, tech will help. However, you have to have business sense. So typically what we look for is one of the co-founders has to have some business sense, because otherwise it can't be taken forward.
Okay, now we are entering into last 12, 13, 14 minutes of the panel discussion, and now the questions and answers would need to be a little more rapid because we have a few more bunch of questions remaining. Now, very quickly to you, Ravi. So this question is from Rajan Baisak. He's saying that we are an early stage SaaS startup with spending down by enterprises due to COVID. What should be our strategy to acquire customers or acquire new customers?
Yeah, so question to Ranjan is, depends on, he didn't mention what area he is in. SaaS is a very, very generic term. So very difficult to say unless we know what segment he is working in. But general answer, there are some segments where the spending will increase. There are some where it will reduce. So you need to be aware of which segment you operate in, and then you can accordingly look at it. But again, if you're just trying to do, I've seen a lot of people posting saying, okay, I've increased my social media marketing during this period because I can reach out to a lot of customers. May work, may not work. But again, the more you understand your vertical segment where you're operating, then you can have your marketing strategies accordingly. Don't overdo anything just because somebody else is doing it. I think understand your segment and then operate. That's what I would say. Because I don't know what segment it is, difficult to answer.
Okay. All right. Next question, very quickly. How do like a lot of employees of the companies have now started working from home? Laptops are going home, computers are going home. Very quickly, how do company address that data protection issues, non-disclosure issues while employees are being asked to work from home? Is there any specific measure to be taken, or it's just employee trust?
Maybe I'll start and then maybe through
yeah.
So pitch in. So I would look at it as, of course, trust we do with everyone. So trust is an essential element to start with. But if you are a company which runs a lot with programming like we do, we have a lot of access controls, access rights set up so that not anyone has access to everything in the company. So that sort of gives us a check and control on who's doing what, using the right
basically you need some IT expertise to take
some amount of IT expertise to do it. But see, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to take data or and let's say documents away, there are means to do it.
Yeah.
But you
Can be
protect it
figured
to
out.
the extent you can,
Yeah.
but beyond that, it's a trust.
Yeah. So this question is to Astha. Um, uh, we have seen the 2.2 billion, I think it is dollars, $2.2 billion package declared by German government. Can you inform us by any specific packages from government of India for startups?
I think everybody has been waiting for that, including myself.
Yeah.
Um, I'm happy to inform you that we've had a couple of consultations with a lot of stakeholders. Our Minister Piyush Goyal has actually been taking a lot of interest as to what can be done for startups, and we've enrolled a number of people into giving us suggestions. There are deliberations around whether there needs to be a loan scheme. In fact, the SIDBI has come out with something called the CSAS scheme already, which is more for slightly later stage companies for capital infusion.
What's
Uh,
that? What, how do you spell that?
CSAS, CSAS scheme by SIDBI. It's already there. SIDBI has already also included an indirect liquidity infusion scheme for giving money to bank, MFIs, and NBFCs that can further lend to MSMEs. So these are things that are happening at the back end already. We are still sort of trying to figure out the best way to support early stage startups. There are suggestions around payment of partial salaries for the employees of startups, but funds are limited. We have to be very careful about where we are spending the money. So a lot of deliberation is required. Any suggestions around this are absolutely welcome. We're also talking to a lot of corporates, foundations, etc., to infuse capital as well.
So is there any platform to access this, or do you keep posting these kind of opportunities on your like Startup India, LinkedIn or
Yes,
something?
so every piece of information that we encounter that can help startups is available on Startup India website. It's called startupindia.gov.in. Please check it out. We have also consolidated a lot of resources that can help startup in this entire COVID-19 crisis. A lot of regulatory reforms have also happened from the side of MCA, SEBI. There is a recent scheme that has done away with any defaulters on the part of companies and is enabling them to get a fresh start. A lot of these regulatory packages are not direct grants or debts, but they are a great amount of economic package. They're giving a lot of relief in terms of deadlines, compliances. So I would strongly recommend that every startup needs to be updated. These kind of things, it's available on Startup India, as I mentioned. Remain aware about what is available to you from the government side so that you can access all of this. I am absolutely available to answer any questions around this. My email, I'm literally giving it out, palak.bhatia@investindia.org.in. Write to us. We are happy to give you any information or access to any of these resources that have already been announced.
Thank you, Palak. Sorry for cutting you short. We are entering into the last 6 minutes.
Absolutely.
Of course, Numa Bangalore will share the contact details of speakers as well as moderators. Now, this last question is to all the three speakers, and each one of you can take a couple of minutes answering this question. It's the same question. What is the one single piece of advice that you would like to give to the entrepreneurs to prepare for the post-COVID world? You know, in case you have to give in 2 minutes, what is the single piece of advice that you will give to entrepreneurs to prepare for the post-COVID world?
Okay, I'll give an answer and I'll make it very quick.
Yeah.
Funds are fine. Look for funds. Don't bank on getting funding. Don't bank on outside support. Look at what you can do to innovate, to survive, and to grab the opportunity. And there are lots of startups out there who are doing innovation and grabbing the opportunity. See, the problem is, you tend to get into a mindset where you say, this is the only way I can run my business, right? And I've shared with you a couple of examples where people have dramatically changed that. That's the only way to go. Don't bank on the outside world. You innovate, you make sure you survive and you grow.
And as you said, bring the fighter inside you out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
You can
Ravi.
either fight or you lose.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Ravi,
Maybe continuing what Dhruv said, it's going to be, I see it as survival of the fittest. I mean, using the cliched word, you need to know how to survive the next 18 months. Not look at just 1 month or 2 months, look little longer. Conserve whatever you can, be frugal. At the same time, don't lose touch with whomever your customers are, whether it's a B2C or a B2B. You need to be aggressive and positive, because if you lose that spirit, I think you're already losing the game. uh, be positive. I think things will change in a short period. I think we just have to keep that spirit high, but be ready to survive, because maybe not everybody will survive this jolt. What happened?
wonderful.
Be the one who survives.
Yeah, correct. So if you do survive and the other guy doesn't, then you have less competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for Ravi. Survival of the fittest. Yeah, that's one more takeaway. Palak, over to you.
I will give two pieces of advice. One is keep your employees engaged. If you have a good employee and you let him go away at this point of time because of fund crunch, because of any problem, getting back that good employee is not going to be easy for you. So keep them engaged to whatever extent you can, interact with them, reassure them of their presence here, because everybody is very afraid of losing their job. Be honest with them. So keep your employees engaged. And as part of this, use this time to create some good planning, as Ravi Karan mentioned, for the next 18 months. Have a good strategy in place so that whenever you get the opportunity to interact with your customer, supply your product to them, you can go out with a bang without having to have second thoughts. So I would suggest these two things.
Wonderful. Thank you for Palak. Now, one of the things that that comes to my mind to address this kind of question from participant is, in India we don't call in Hindi, Marathi, or Sanskrit, or even I think in some of the South Indian languages, we don't call economics or finance. We call it Artha Shastra. So our people who invented the ancient strategies, they believed that if you find meaning, which is artha, and study the science of meaning, which is shastra, if you in pursuit of meaning, you will find money as a byproduct. So if we can go back to our roots, start doing meaningful things, money will take care of the situation on its own.
Now you're sounding like Sadhguru.
No, I'm far away from these things. Okay, I still believe that the current challenge is, how do you stay meaningful in this current business situation? You know, how do you stay relevant in this current sudden so many changes? So that's my opinion. If you think I have anything to do with Sadhguru, you're wrong. But
no, your hairstyle is slightly different.
Yeah, what's your take on being relevant and meaningful in this current situation? Is that important?
No, absolutely, absolutely. You know, the point is, people say this is the way I will work, and the world around me should not change. Yeah. Accept the fact that it will change, and therefore you need to change.
That's very meaningful. That's very meaningful. That's very interesting. So I think we are at the last minute. I would like to hand over to Numa Krishnapriya. Would you take it from here?
Hi. Yeah. So we have Umesh who have raised hand. Umesh, would you like to answer your question? I think we can take one last question. Hello, Umesh, you are there?
I think Umesh Patil's question was answered. So how technology adoption?
Umesh Yadav is a cricketer, by the way.
Umesh, do you have any questions?
Hello.
Yes,
hello.
Umesh. Yeah, you are audible, Umesh.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, Umesh, go ahead.
Sir, my question is on post-COVID business strategies of foreign companies in India, especially. Hello.
Yeah, so I will try to repeat Umesh's question. He has also typed it out. What would be the foreign companies' investment strategy in India, considering post-COVID situation? What would be any take on how would foreign companies or foreign investors invest in India in post-COVID-19 situation? I think it was partly addressed by you, Dhruv, that stay relevant, bring the fighter out. Yeah. So would you like to?
Yeah, so I'll just add, you know, after this entire crisis, all companies are looking at diversifying away from China because they were too dependent on China. You know, everything. For example, in the pharma industry, APIs used to come from China, right? So now they will look at diversifying so that if there is another crisis, they are not dependent on one single country. But for that, we have to quickly gear up and put our policies in place.
That's very interesting insight given by you, that earlier foreign investors were investing only in China, but then now they want to spread their risk.
Diversify. Yeah.
The whole model can.
But then we are also competing with guys like Bangladesh and Vietnam and Cambodia and co. So we have to be fast. That's all. However,
Okay.
you know, the size of the country is such that the volumes we can produce, nobody else can. So potentially we have a huge advantage, but we need to grab the advantage.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that.
So it's already 6 o'clock, I think, time to wrap up. So audience, if you have any questions, you know my email IDs, please forward the questions to me. So I'll share with the panelists, and if they answer, I can share with you. And so Has, it was a nice moderation. Like you did great. Thank you for the presentation. And to all our panelists, thank you for sharing your insight. And thank you for like taking the time on a holiday to spend with our startup community. Thanks for joining. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. When you work from home, there is no holiday.
Yeah.
We are already on holiday. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dhruv.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, all participants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
बड़ा सर है यार